Electrical and other connections are made from inside the PVE 300 chamber to the outside world via a connections panel. In the case of the PVE 300 XY with XY stages, the case here, the connections panel is to the rear of the chamber. In the case of the PVE 300 standard model, this panel is located to the side wall alongside the BIOS source. Therefore, if one looks at the front of the PVE 300 chamber, the panel would be to the right-hand side. The connections panel includes 4 BNC connectors to interface electrically with the device under test. Transformer to connect to the 474 transformer preamplifier. 497 preamp to connect to the 497 preamplifier. Auxiliary 1 and Auxiliary 2 are supplemental and are typically only used when using the Keithley 2400 source measure unit to voltage bias a device under test. The 25-way D connector, Auxiliary 3, is intended for use in the PVE 300 XY to interface the motorized XY stages in the PVE 300 chamber to the PMC MAC unit used to drive them. The VC-TE20 should be connected to the water flow, water return and vacuum ports through piping provided, and the temperature control of the VC-TE20 interfaces with the temperature controlled vacuum chuck via a connector which is hardwired to the temperature controlled vacuum chuck, and at a later time we will pass the connector through this aperture. And finally, we have an LED port with a 3-way connector, and this is to connect the LED driver, thus provided to the mains, and which illuminates the LED light source inside the PVE 300 chamber. Pass the lead of the temperature controlled vacuum chuck through the connection panel and hold in place using the retaining nut provided. And clearly this is a job for 2 people, 1 person from the inside of the chamber and 1 from the outside. One can proceed to connect to the VC-TE20 using the 4-way cable, locating the pin and rotating the collar to lock in place. And one can also connect the longer silicon pipe provided to link the water flow to the VC-TE20 port of the same name, and similarly with water return and vacuum, making sure of course not to mix these inputs up. Using the thin BNC cable provided, link the transformer port of the rear panel to the 474 transformer preamplifier input port, and link the 497 preamp port to input 1 of the 497 preamplifier. The connector labelled transformer on the PVE 300 connection plate should be connected to the 474 preamp input using BNC cable. The port labelled 497 preamp should be connected to input 1, the upper of 2 inputs of the 497 current preamplifier. The 218 port of the dual source should be connected to the 218 chopper controller. This is using a 7-pin Amphenol connector. One should locate the 7 pins and then rotate the collar to hold in place. Using the 7-way Amphenol connectorized cable, link the 218 port of the dual source to the 218 module, pushing in place and rotating the collar to lock in place. The 474 transformer should be located in the far right corner of the PVE 300 chamber. In this manner, the transformer stays clear of the motorized XY stages. In the standard PVE 300 model, one has more liberty in terms of positioning the transformer. The input of the transformer should be connected to using a thick piece of PNC cable connecting to the input, and where we connect to depends on what we shall measure, the reference diode or a device under test. I shall leave it to the side for the moment. The output of the 474 transformer should now be connected to the upper right PV connections panel. We connect the output to the upper right connector. We've previously connected the other side of this connector to the 474 transformer preamplifier. The lower right connector, which we previously connected to the 497 preamplifier, we connect to using a thin piece of PNC cable, and we can connect this either to a device under test when using the 497 AC or DC modes, or in the measurement of reflectance and transmission, we can connect this cable to the detector on the DTR6 integrating sphere. In the PVE 300XY, one should of course take care to ensure that the cables do not impede the movement of the motorized XY stages.